The price of mercy. The wind carried the scent of dry earth and sour liquor through the frontier settlement of Red Creek Crossing. Dust rolled along the wooden boardwalks like restless ghosts. The sky hung pale and merciless above the scattered buildings. A trading post, a saloon with swinging doors, a blacksmith's forge ringing with tired metal. A crowd had formed near the general store. Not a loud crowd, a watching crowd. In places like Red Creek, people did not gather to interfere. They gathered to witness. At the center stood a narrow-shouldered man with hollow cheeks and shaking hands. His name was Wilbur Hayes. A bottle of cheap whiskey dangled loosely from his fingers, half empty or half full, depending on how much hope you still had left in life. Beside him stood his daughter. Her name was Clara Hayes. She looked barely 20. Her faded brown dress was stained with dust and patched at the elbows. Her hair, once golden, now hung loose and uncombed around her shoulders. Dirt marked her sleeves, but her eyes were shikao. Her eyes were clear, wide, frightened, painfully aware of what was happening. She clasped her hands tightly in front of her waist, trying to stop them from trembling. "I'm telling you," Wilbur slurred, swaying slightly. "It's a fair arrangement. One bottle now, I'll square the rest later." Across from him stood a thick-necked ranch hand named Mercer Doyle. His smile was thin, humorless. He wasn't smiling at Wilbur. He was studying Clara, the way a man might examine livestock before a purchase. Clara swallowed hard. Her throat tightened. She had pleaded with her father all morning, begged him not to bring her here, not to make this bargain in front of everyone. But whiskey always mattered more. The townsfolk whispered quietly. No one stepped forward. In Red Creek Crossing, survival depended on silence. For a moment, Clara's mind drifted to the memory of her mother, a small whitewashed cabin near Willow Bend Creek. Warm bread cooling on the windowsill, soft humming at night, gentle hands braiding her hair. Her mother had died 5 years ago. The drinking had begun the following winter, and it had never stopped. Mercer reached forward and grabbed Clara's chin roughly, turning her face from side to side. "She looks strong enough," he muttered. "Might be worth it." Clara felt her face burn. Shame wrapped around her like barbed wire. Then a voice cut through the air. "That's enough." The words were calm, but they carried weight. The crowd shifted, parted slightly. A tall rider stepped forward from the edge of the gathering. His name was Caleb Turner, broad-shouldered, sun-browned, a man whose coat bore dust from long miles and whose boots had known both rain and drought. His eyes were steady, clear, observant. He had been standing near the hitching posts, listening every word. Mercer turned sharply. "Mind your business." Caleb didn't raise his voice. "Trading your daughter for liquor ain't business," he said firmly. "It's a disgrace," Wilbur squinted at him. "She's mine. I'll do as I please." Caleb stepped closer. "She ain't property." The air grew heavy, even the wind seemed to hesitate. Caleb reached into his saddlebag and withdrew a small leather pouch. Coins clinked softly inside. "I'll pay you more than that bottle's worth," he said evenly. "But not for her freedom." Mercer's eyes flicked toward the pouch. Wilbur's hand trembled harder. Greed battled pride. Greed won. He snatched the pouch without counting it. "Fine," Wilbur muttered. "Take her." Clara stood frozen. This didn't feel real. Caleb turned toward her gently. "You're free to walk away," he said quietly. "If you want." "If you want." The words struck her like rain in a drought. No one had ever asked her that. She nodded faintly. Caleb extended his hand, not demanding, not forceful. "Just open." She placed her hand in his. The crowd slowly dispersed, whispers trailing behind them. They walked toward Caleb's horse, a deep chestnut gelding named Rust. He helped Clara into the saddle, careful, respectful. Then he mounted behind her. As they rode away from Red Creek Crossing, the town shrank behind them. The wind out on the prairie felt different, cleaner. The ranch at Cedar Ridge, Caleb's ranch, rested against a wide stretch of rolling land near Cedar Ridge. It wasn't grand, a modest cabin, a barn, fenced pasture, and a small orchard of struggling apple trees. But it was honest. He helped Clara down from the saddle. "This is home," he said simply. Inside, the cabin smelled of pine wood and worn leather. A fire crackled softly in the hearth. He gave her stew, fresh water, a clean blanket. She ate cautiously at first, then hungrily. Caleb sat across from her at the table, giving her space. "You can stay here," he said after a moment. "Help around the ranch if you want, or don't. Rest first. Figure out what you want your life to be." Tears filled her eyes again, but this time, they weren't tears of humiliation. "They never asked what I wanted," she whispered. Caleb nodded. "They do now," the past revealed. Over the next few days, Clara learned small things about Caleb. He had lost his wife, Anna, to fever 2 winters ago. They had no children. After she passed, he had nearly sold the ranch, nearly let grief swallow the land too. "I kept working," he said one evening, as they repaired fence posts together, "even when I couldn't see the point." Clara looked at him carefully. "Why didn't you leave?" He thought for a long moment. "Because she loved this land, and I wasn't ready to let that memory die." Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable. Shared, John. Trouble rides back. News travels faster than horses in small territories. A week later, Sheriff Amos Bell rode up with concern in his eyes. "Wilbur Hayes is telling folks you kidnapped his daughter," he said plainly. Clara stiffened. Caleb remained calm. She walked away by choice. The sheriff looked at Clara. She stepped forward. "I chose to leave," she said clearly. "No one forced me." Sheriff Bell tipped his hat. "That settles it." But trouble wasn't finished. 3 days later, Wilbur Hayes staggered up to the ranch gate, drunk and furious. "You stole what's mine," he shouted. Caleb stepped outside calmly. "She ain't yours to own." Clara stood behind him, not hiding. "I'm not going back," she said firmly. "Not to him, not to that life." For the first time in his life, Wilbur Hayes faced resistance, real resistance. He faltered. He cursed. Then he stumbled away into the fading light. He never returned. A new beginning. Weeks passed. Clara learned to manage chickens, bake bread without burning it, balance ledgers. Caleb taught her to ride properly. In the evenings, she practiced reading from an old book Anna had once loved. Her laughter slowly returned. One sunset, they stood together on the porch. The sky burned red and gold over the plains. "You didn't save me," she said softly. Caleb shook his head. "You saved yourself. I just opened the gate." She smiled, a real smile, the kind that reaches the eyes. In a world that had tried to break her, Clara Hayes had reclaimed her life. And in helping her stand, Caleb Turner had found something too. Not a replacement for grief, not a cure for loss, but purpose. And sometimes, that is enough. If you enjoyed this powerful Western story of courage, redemption, and second chances, please don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, subscribe to East Wild West Love Story. Your support keeps these stories riding forward across the plains.